stages in.
Oh wow, how many are you aiming for?
I don't know. I usually shoot for around 10 to 14.
Got you. Hello, friends and brothers. This is Justin with Masonic Improvement. We have, of course, my co-host Dennis Yates, and we have Inner Circle member Byron Weber. Not that he's
Right worshipful,
your
Byron
right
Weber.
worshipful, and
Oh
now
yeah, y'all
Brad
get way
Hoff.
off on that. It's
Yeah,
all right.
Oh, and worshipful Brad Ha. Yeah, we got all kinds of fancy people on this show, and here we are, just us.
getting bougie.
I know. We're making it in this world, I'm telling you.
You could be wrong
Okay.
worshipful, Dennis, if you want.
I am definitely wrong most times.
Wrong worshipful.
Good morning.
That's that's called the
Somewhat worshipful.
secretary.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
that's called the secretary.
Good morning to noon.
The unworshipful.
There you go. So the theme for this evening is what fills our cup. That's what we wanted to talk about tonight. Dennis and I actually discussed this earlier today over the phone, and like that's what we'll talk about. What fills our cup? It could be. I mean, obviously, where this is a Masonic podcast, so Masonically, but anything in general, like anything in your life that fills your cup, gives us an opportunity to learn from each other. So, Dennis, you were sharing earlier. Why don't you share with everybody, if you feel comfortable, what you were talking about fills your cup?
Well, for me, it's when I write. When I'm writing presentations and things like that, because I'm researching, I'm digging deep into not just intellectually but spiritually. And I believe that it's the growth of the intellect and spirit that develops your soul, right? That's your soul to me. And so there's nothing that says fill my cup more than when I am writing a paper and taking deep dives into it. And then because those are the moments where I'm not really researching so much. I'm not much of a research paper writer. I'm just not that guy. I'm not the guy that's going to go to the library and, find 100 books and dig through them. And I'd rather have somebody else do all that work for me and then just give me the Cliff Notes versions, and then I'll pick what I want from that. That's my style. But so most of my papers are more philosophical and a little more heartfelt, I think. And so in doing that, I'm digging. When I write something and I'm presenting it to somebody, I'm really giving a piece of me when I do that, because I really feel like that's my moment of stepping back from all the chaos of the world and reflecting who I am, where I am, all the things that I've learned to make me who I am, and putting it on paper. So for me, that that fill in my cup means, that moment of reflection. And because it's all about the internal, right? And so if you're going to fill your cup, it's got to come from within. So all the things that fill me up inside, that's what fills my cup.
I like that, man. Byron, Brad, y'all have some? I mean, I'll go next unless y'all have something.
Go ahead.
Brad, got anything? Yeah, I
You've
was.
had time to think about it, so
Yeah,
so you ought to go ahead and speak and let them have a chance to think about it for a
sure.
second.
No, I was as I was thinking about it. There's a few different things I think that really kind of keep me going. I guess you could say. Masonically, it's definitely like these little events. I say little, but like the esoteric event that Brad held, like the dinners that we hold. I was listening back over the conversation we had with our guest that's coming out, Pete Norman. We have a interview coming out tomorrow, actually, 11, with Pete Norman, and it got me thinking about that vestibule you and I went to, Dennis, over in College Station last year. I think it was last year.
Mm-hmm. That was a good one.
Things like that really fill my cup masonically. Um, I mean, stated meetings definitely don't, because most lodges treat them just like business meetings. Uh, I enjoy degrees, but I feel like I don't know, man. What really fills my cup is going to events and things where I'm learning things. I'm having really high level discussions with other people that are also interested in learning things. Really, what I feel like the roots of Freemasonry is like actually studying esoteric scientific concepts and discussing them with other like-minded people. Personally and socially, I think what really fills my cup is time I spend with my kids. Not all the time I spend with my kids. The time where they're actually being chill and
Yeah, I've
listening.
seen you spend time with your kids. It's not all the time you spend with your kids.
But also, it sounds really cheesy, but teaching in general, like my job, that actually, it's really weird to have someone say they have a job that fills their cup, especially when, like, right now at the end of the year and like testing and all this, like this whole season in general, educationally is really exhausting. Like you go home tired, but um, this is also the time when they'll like leave your notes and stuff telling you like what an impact you made on them as a teacher, and so things like that also go a really long way to fill my cup. So I think between all of that, um, yeah, it's just fortunately for me, these are all day to day parts of my life, right? I'm not always writing papers, or I'm not always going and fishing or playing golf or what other some people may do, but I'm always with my family, and I'm always, it feels like, at work. So these are all opportunities to recharge.
Wow.
Yep.
I don't find recharging time with my family. Just kidding.
Wow. Either of y'all got something?
I do.
Okay. What you got?
Uh, so yeah, if you look at what fills my cup masonically, excuse me, masonically, like this type of thing really does. Um, Getting together once a week with you, it's almost like this is my beginning of my week. Starts right here, um, and then I get to live off of this Masonic food for the week, right? Um, I also do a Wednesday night study club, and we've been diving into, the Ashlar program from the Grand Lodge, and I've been trying to, do the, you know, round robin style of questions and answers, open and closed lodges, things like that. That's kind of fun. And definitely the speaker events and things like that. They're really good. So Masonically, like you said, stated meetings are just they are what they are. I mean, try to make the best of them, but I don't always do a great job as worshipful pastor trying to fill everybody's need, that they need from a meeting. Um, I fill mine, but as far as that goes, uh, family, I love my little girl, and I get to come home and see her, and she always is really happy to see me. So that personally fills my cup. I'm also a Christian, and I do once a week Bible study with some guys from work. And so you said, work, you get a lot of good stuff from work, and work for me is also fulfilling. Um, I get to go to people's houses that are in desperate situations, and I'm able to help them overcome their problems. And I get spiritual food from that. Now they pay me money to do that, but at the same time, I'm helping them through a time, and I get to, cater to their needs in that. And so all that stuff I learned by doing this masonry stuff. So
And for me, work has a definite impact on getting my cup filled. There's a certain Zen aspect to it. So much of it is it's repetitive processes, and in getting into those processes and concentrating on doing them correctly every single time, it can be stressful. And frankly, there are lives relying on me doing my job correctly, and not necessarily just a few. I work on airplanes, and I derive a certain amount of joy from looking back at the day's work and seeing the progress that I have made in doing this job, and knowing that I've done it correctly, and not having any doubts about, did I remember to tighten that to the correct torque, or did I put all those O-rings in where they belong? I've been doing this long enough now, just for a few years, but long enough now that I really have learned to derive joy out of doing this job right and doing it well. Masonically, I've got a couple of guys that I try to hang out with on a regular basis. We don't have anything that's scheduled weekly or anything like that. One of them is guy's a 70-year Mason, and man, this dude, I want his Zen so bad. He is Mr. Laid Back. Mr. Nothing gets to him. He's 95 years old. Nothing gets to this dude.
I just don't think I'm going to give a crap about anything by the time I'm 95. It's
Well,
just going to be.
And he talks about, sometimes folks do give him crap, especially for being an old guy, and a really old dude.
Right.
And he just has this disarmingly calm demeanor that I want. And
that's how you get to be 95.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You learn not to take things so seriously.
Yeah,
I'm
the
sure.
slow steady.
But he's just he's the living embodiment of what I want to be. He really, truly is. And then there's, socially and family wise, just getting to hang out. And, I got to go to a birthday party for my sister tonight. And seeing her friends and the love they exhibit for her, the love that she gives them back in return. And being able to be a part of that is very, very cup filling for me. It really does just bring me a ton of joy. And I think that's what it is that fills my cup, is finding the joy in whatever it is that I'm doing. I don't always succeed, God knows, but don't mean I can't try. And in the trying, I think that's where the success lies.
Yep. Your microphone?
I keep forgetting. I'm trying to.
Sorry. I was done. So that's
no.
yeah.
No, my mic was off. I was talking and my mic was off. So that's my bad.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
Yeah.
He was playing Mr. Mime.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start going. Every time you do that, I'm just gonna start, throwing up my hands and being cool.
The topic of state meetings, when that came up, I really encourage the members only version is already live. The episode with Pete, so you might listen to it. Probably too late to listen to it tonight, but give it a listen before it comes out, because there's some. We discuss the frequency of stated meetings and how important it really is and things like that, and it's really something we really got to start considering, and that is because like I'll say, it's just a business meeting, but it doesn't. If Grand Lodge was to come down and say you can only have 4 meetings a year, 4 stated meetings, you would find a way to conduct business in those meetings that is, in a way, that's efficient and covers the time that needs to be covered. I guess what I'm saying is, you would be surprised that you don't need as many stated meetings as you have, and that isn't to say that you're not still meeting. You still don't. It's not that you don't meet with your brothers once a month or however frequently you want to. It's just we're only going to talk business every 3 months or so, unless something comes up or we have to move things around. And so I don't know. I think when people talk about Freemasonry and the disappointment with the meetings is because, yeah, of course they're all business meetings. So we call them stated meetings, and we open with ritual and everything, but really it's just a business meeting. But if you did 4 business meetings a year, and then every other month that was not a business meeting, you had a called meeting where you met somewhere nice for dinner, and you had a talk or something, had a presentation. I think that really go a long ways. I know we were talking about filling our cup and everything,
Well,
but that
I
would
think
fill my
that's
cup a lot.
if there weren't, yeah. I, you know, if you think about it, the reason why they're called stated meetings is because there's a statement that there's going to be a meeting, and it's held for business. It's the same. If you've ever been in civil service, you've had to take, or for the city or county or anything like that, you've had to take a course on doing meetings properly and for the masses, right? There's certain things you have to do to have those meetings. You have to have minutes. You have to have um, an opening. You have to have a closing. You have to have um, an agenda. You have to have, there's certain things you have to have, and you have to have you in a civic manner. You have to present that agenda that you're going to talk on before you talk on it, so that people can show up for it. Hence the word stated. So you made a statement that there's going to be a meeting for people to come and talk business. That way, there's you know there's transparency and for all government. Well, I think the problem lies in the 1700s when we formed this thing called the United Grand Lodge of England. And we decided that we were going to have a formality to this thing called Freemasonry. And that's what caused that we would have to have meetings to discuss what we are going to do and where we were going to go from there. Had nothing to do with the ritual. Well, except for trying to make the ritual more uniform and this and that, because there were a bunch of different sects throughout the lands, and then they started coming up with, one. We followed the Anderson's Constitution, and then another one. Oh, what's that other Constitution? I've been reading the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry by Albert Mackey, and this you would think that this would all be very fresh on my mind, and it is pretty fresh, but my mind is like this big, so it's not very fresh. But there were different constitutions that they wanted to follow and this and that, which is basically what the ritual was, how the ritual was performed, things like that. And I think it was Mackey
You think
that
about
wrote
Anderson's Constitution?
Anderson's, and then there's another one. There was another one for the
Okay,
ancients and the moderns.
got you.
So and later on, there was another brother that wrote a book that said, and it wasn't Mackey. Mackey quoted him, and he said, in essence, what this was deciding if we were going to put the glove on the right hand or the left hand first, right? And so we started all these business meetings off of that, and then now we have to hold them to keep our status as a nonprofit organization. To be a corporation, you're supposed to have a certain number of meetings per year. If you're a small corporation like mine, with my wife and I, we can have one a couple of times a year and get away with it because we're just managing our own business. But if you're a large corporation, you're having them monthly, sometimes weekly, and those are your stated meetings that you have for the corporation. And so we have to have the same thing to fill those requirements. We have to have the minimum amount of, I think, 4 per year. But for whatever reason, we have 12 to 24. Pick your poison on your lodge, and that's what they have. And all it is how to do civil service. They're just doing civic projects with those meetings instead of practicing Freemasonry. You know, we're the only, and we fail miserably at it, at being a civic service group, a civil service group. The Rotary Club, the Lions Club, all those guys do such a better job at it than us. And,
Well,
but
they were
that
designed
that's
from the ground up to be that.
but that's and that's exactly what I was fixing to say. Is that that's the difference? Is that we were never supposed to be that. We were supposed to be an organization that was focused on our internal. That was our focus. Our focus, if you read in Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, then you find that um, Kabbalah and things like that were supposed to be in our ritual. They were supposed to be in our discussions with in what we do. When when we open and close with ritual, it's because we're opening into um, well, I'm going to say into King Solomon's temple here, but it alludes to something else. And then we're leaving King Solomon's temple, even though it really um, represents something else, which I hope there are brothers out there that know what that represents. Because if they don't, then maybe they ought to go back and start reading some books. Because I know they're not getting it from their lodge if they don't know what that represents. And that's I don't know if we call it a sickness, a sadness, or what, but we have ritual to learn the symbolism of Freemasonry. And way back when, we forgot how to use our compasses. And this ship that we were on took off in the wrong direction. We got steered off course. So now we're an organization that's just trying to keep up with stated meetings and being the civil service group that we were never intended to be. We were intended to be good men and to make our world better, to be the innovators of our world, which is what all of us here do. Like you said, Byron, being the very best at keeping that plane in the air, that's important. You're doing a great service to the world by keeping that plane in the air. And I'm telling you, Brad, when somebody's losing an AC unit and their whole family is miserable, they're not the best people to talk to. And you are just the right kind of person to talk them through that process and to help them the best way that you can to where they can find comfort in life. Those things, and then of course, you're a teacher. We'll just leave that at that. But but the reality is that our principles and our lessons were to teach us how to be the best at being those kind of people that we can be. It wasn't for us to spend our meetings deciding on what our next civil service project's going to be, whether we're going to give scholarships or we're going to throw a fundraiser so we can give scholarships, or if we're going to go, pick up trash on the side of the highway, or we're going to do this or we're going to do that. The lodge, it wasn't the lodge's job to go do anything. It was never the lodge's job to go do anything. It was a secret society. They got together behind closed doors and came out with the best thing for the world and then took it outside individually. They didn't do it as a group, as a lodge, as a fraternity.
You mean they didn't have to have a square and compass on their back because they did good things?
They didn't have to wear this hat all the time. I wear it because I'm proud.
There's a comment by Cesar Rubio. He says,
hey, Caesar.
We do not actively study the mysteries of Masonry as a lodge. We go the other route and focus on the business of a lodge.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would add to that, along with this whole civil service conversation, what a lot of lodges do is they fall in this trap is they know we're going to lose members this year. We have people passing away and they leave just because they're not being engaged enough. So what we have to do is be out in front of people to get enough members to offset the ones we lost. And so they're so preoccupied.
That's been the mentality, yes.
They're so preoccupied with replacing the people that are leaving by doing these superficial things where they can get in front of people just to keep their charter, but they're not actually practicing
And to
Freemasonry.
keep their building.
Yeah, they're
I
so
mean,
focused.
they could get rid of their building and still keep their charter.
They're so focused on the business side, like what Caesar's saying. They're so focused on the business side that they never have time to focus on the actual Freemasonry side of Freemasonry, and because of that, it's like it's like going to the model train club that Pete talked about in his episode, where you join a model train club expecting them to talk about model trains.
Don't you give all that up.
This is a little.
That's going to be our next episode with Pete.
Little snippet here, but they're so preoccupied with replacing the lost members that they're just doing things to get members, and you never talk about the trains. It's the same thing. When if you would just talk about trains, you probably wouldn't lose as many people aside from those that died, and people that are interested would still be joining.
Right. You would have the people that actually wanted to join, and the ones that, didn't join for that reason would not. Yeah.
So if we just talked about Freemasonry in our lodge and did actual Masonic things, I get you have to have business meetings. But we just talked about actual Freemasonry and actually learned and then took that out 29 days out of the month, or however long the month is. Took that the rest of the month and just practiced it, and then came back and learned something new. It took that out. Man, that'd be a huge difference.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I was going to say, right along with what you were just saying, talking about Freemasonry, that does attract the right kind of people to your lodge. The Wednesday night thing that I'm doing, we've got like 6 guys showing up for that, which is pretty cool. And we're starting to like add in food to it to where we can, have something to chew on while we're learning. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, and having 6 people, it's easy to say, hey, let's do a potluck and everybody bring your favorite whatever to share. And then everybody gets fed and everybody gets to try different things that they didn't have to cook. That's awesome. Now I don't want to give too much away, but we are going to have another episode. Now, our next episode with Pete is coming out. We're going to have another episode with him, and we're going to go through his discussion. It's actually the letter that got him into the editorial as part of the editorial group for the Southern Jurisdiction Scottish Rite, and it's called King Solomon's Yacht Club. And we're going to have another talk on that. And it's basically what Justin was talking about is, he wrote a paper on that very thing on people not doing what they thought that they were joining to do. And now it's a catch-22 though, because right now, in the situation we're in, though we have this opportunity in front of us, and this is what my paper right now has a lot to do with. Right now, it's a catch-22 because we've got so many members that came in under the false pretenses of what we were really originally supposed to do as Freemasons. They came in under the pretenses of the civil service group, right? That's what they enjoy, and that's why they joined. And so for us to steer the ship back on course, it's taking it off course from what they thought they were joining. And so that's where you have this internal struggle within Freemasonry, because you've got this group that they joined for those specific reasons that some people did not. But the reality of our situation is that the young men today, there's a few things that they're interested in, and when they join Freemasonry, and it is right here, and it's not going out and doing things for other people. It's for learning how to be a man, learning how to be a good man. And yes, they do enjoy fellowship too, and that's a big part of what we do. That's the most important part of us as a fraternity, is that fraternal relationship, that fellowship that bonds us, that camaraderie, that we share together, that only we understand each other. However, the other stuff, it's all just white noise in the background. It's stuff that's taking all of our time away from getting down to the meat and potatoes of Freemasonry, in my opinion.
Something that I'd be interested in experimenting with. This is going to sound really hypocritical coming from a district instructor, right? But
Then you better not say
you said yourself, like, you're not a ritualist, Dennis.
Right.
I know, and I know there are jurisdictions that have way less memory work that still struggle. So that's why I say I'd like to see it as an experiment. Um, what if you had these, because these people are interested in learning about like esoteric concepts and stuff, but they may not necessarily be interested in rote memorization. And what if like instead, like, you can memorize this stuff, or you can present X number of papers to the lodge, right? So if you're interested more in like the research side and learning, here's our library. Pick a book, write a paper on it, and share what you learned at the lodge. And that would provide alternative. And I know there's this mentality, like, well, if they can't learn it, then they don't have the capacity to be a Mason, or I had to learn it, you should have to learn it. I get it, but let's keep in mind that really the catechism as it was not unique when it was created. Catechisms used to be far more common because books and things like that were not common. So how did you memorize like Bible verses, and how did you, the alphabet is a catechism, right? You put things in these forms of like songs or questions and answers, and you use that
Well, that's how
to
you
remember
learn the
things.
Torah.
Is it? Okay, so there you go. There's another example. And we are not at that point now. Like, we have a lot of information widely available. And I think it would be interesting to see that treated as like, I don't know. Like, we've discussed the value of just doing that with people anyway.
Right.
I'm not
Well,
advocating for removing it. I'm just saying I'd
I,
be interested in seeing the how
I,
that look.
I do agree with what you're saying. However, I would like to also say that as someone who cares so much about the ritual, I'm not a ritualist, but I
Mm-hmm.
care deeply about it. And at our next degree, I'll be senior deacon, and I can do that, and I can do it without problems. I can perform a lot of the stuff. The lectures, I'm just not so excited about the lectures. The but everything else, give me a month and I can be ready. But I'm not a ritualist. I
Mm-hmm.
say I'm not a ritualist, but if I need to do a part, I can do it, and I can prepare myself to do it. And I think that that's because it means that much to me that it's done well, and that we make sure and pass on that that work.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm not a ritualist, I do believe in ritual. So
Well, I'm
I
not
don't
saying
know.
I don't
That's
believe in ritual. I'm not saying do it with
I
ritual.
know, but I think that if we start going down the, give or take, do this or this, then we're going to get a lot more people that want to do one way than the other, and then we're going to be we already have a shortcoming of ritualists as it is.
Yeah.
You just give people the excuse to not do it, and then we're going to have a lot less.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Uh, Caesar does say that the memory work should be a barrier to entry to see how badly they want it, and I've heard that before. I don't know.
I
I
also think that if you want it, then yeah, if you want to be a Freemason, you want to do those things.
yeah.
I wanted to learn. I wanted to know those secrets. I wanted to know the words.
I
You
just
know,
feel like
that's
if you have a really good vetting process and it's lengthy enough, and if your degree fees, hate to be that guy, are expensive enough, that's enough of a vetting process right there.
we're fixing to raise ours.
Which one, the degree fees?
Yeah,
We're,
actually, dues and degree fees.
yeah, we're having a whole conversation with my lodges tomorrow about dues.
I'm not
So
going to put it online yet because you know, bylaws committee met today, and I got to write it up for tomorrow or
yeah,
for Tuesday.
I understand. But
But
there is a
once it
process.
happens, I'll let you know.
And Texas does have one of the lengthier entered apprentice catechisms that there is. Um, I don't know, man. I'm just really just kind of thinking out loud here. I'm not advocating or suggesting anything. I'm just thinking out loud.
I can assure you that memorizing that stuff is not. It doesn't make you a better Mason, to
No,
be
and that's
honest
the
with
thing.
you,
And it was
because
we have
I
records.
didn't learn what this stuff meant until years later, and when I actually took the time to understand what I was regurgitating.
We have
So
records from I don't remember what year it was, but it was at a Grad Lodge meeting where they sat down. Like the issue was, hey, we have too many people becoming Master Masons. What can we do? And the answer wasn't, hey, let's.
slow it down.
That wasn't the answer. Guard the West Gate. Psh, let's just make them
No,
memorize more stuff.
that
And
was
so,
it. Slow it down. Slow it down with memory
oh
work.
yeah, well I guess yeah, I can see
I
that.
mean, there was memory work, but they did increase it.
But this was a time when you had people joining left and right. We're not at that position anymore. So
I don't want to be in that
I
position
don't
anymore,
either. I don't.
ever.
But I also don't think we're in a position where we have to have. I agree we need to have barriers to entry, but we don't have the conditions that existed when that particular barrier was put up. And I think if you like, I haven't been to many. I don't think I've been to any other jurisdictions, but and I'm not advocating go to like England where they give you like a pamphlet and you have to memorize 5 things off a pamphlet. Not by any means, but like just go back to like one section or something like that.
I'd rather I'd
Awfully
rather
quiet.
no, I would rather shorten the ritual requirement for the entered apprentice, and require that a paper be written on the symbolism of
Hmm?
of the degree,
I could be
of
I'd be
of
totally down with that.
of a minimum of 5 things in the degree that that are symbolized in that degree. A
Hmm?
minimum of 5. And that would make me happy. We could go down to just doing the first section of the EA degree, and then a minimum of five things, and then just leave the fellowcraft and the masters as they are, and then also do a minimum of 5 things from each one of those degrees. And that
So
would make me happier because people would be smarter on what Freemasonry actually is if they
someone in
did
the
that.
comment says make it 7 years from first to third degree. Yeah, we should just do like they do over in Switzerland. Just time in
Yes.
service, baby.
Yep. Well, and that's the way it was from apprentice to master, if you remember. Well, I don't know if I told you this, but in the operatives, as the operative masons, they did from apprentice to master. It was a 7 year stint that you worked as an apprentice, and then what you did is you would present a master piece to all the masters, and then they would judge it and determine if you were going to be a master and you were going to be able to receive master, travel to foreign countries and receive master's wages. So that was a 7 year journey uh, from start to finish. And can't say I disagree, man. Can't say I disagree, because it wasn't until at least 7 years, maybe even longer, into this thing called masonry that I've been involved, that I started actually learning what the symbolism meant.
Mhm.
It took me that long to really start grasping it because I was too tangled up in all the hoopla that we call stated meetings and everything that compiles those meetings. So I was so busy with the business, I had no idea that there was something else for me to learn.
I just know, like, if I want to learn something esoteric, and if I want to actually be able to sit and have a conversation with somebody, like that's why I joined, so I can actually. I'm not saying that's what I did. I'm just saying hypothetically, I joined so I can sit down and have high level conversations with people. But every time I come to lodge, all they want to do is make me memorize this stuff that I'm not interested in. Right? Granted,
Right.
if you did it, eventually that will pass. But you have like this honeymoon period with with every organization, no matter how long you're visiting. Like once you're actually in, you're like, okay, this is how this works. If every time you sit down, it's some guy just trying to make you like memorize something word for word, I think memorizing the first section is a pretty good indication of your ability to do that. I think by the time you get to the third section, it's just like please end this.
mind
Just
numbing.
please end this. Yeah. And it's not one of those things that like we tell people, and this isn't going too deep into the work, but I tell people like, hey, once you get the first catechism down, everything else becomes easier down the road. But it only emulate the first section, if that makes sense. So why have so much? Have them write a paper.
Right.
And the idea of writing a paper also means that they're diving deeper into, as you said, Dennis, diving deeper into the meaning of the words that you're, to use your word, regurgitating. Parroting was what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And you can Polly to say all kinds of crazy stuff. I can teach an new EA to say all kinds of the catechism. But if you're not imbuing into them the lesson within the catechism, then you're doing them and yourselves and Masonry as a whole a disservice.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening out there that think, well, how did this go from 7 days and rest and reflection and how do you fill your cup? Well, this is absolutely what we're talking about, because the period after initiation should be a time of reflection. And so if we're, like I said prior, when I'm writing a paper, I dig deep. I really go inwards and dig deep to come up with content for my papers. And so that causes a lot of reflection on what I know, what I've learned. And if there's something that I'm a little fuzzy about, then I pull out some books and I read on it. And then I come up with my interpretation of that lesson. So I think that when we dig too much into the catechism, it can be it can be distracting from the reflection. That's what we were that's what we were supposed to do. That was the intention of memorizing the work, was reflecting on what we just went through. But it gets to a point to where it's all memorization and no reflection. And so when we get to that point, we need to step back and look at how we're doing things. I think we're at that moment right now. Even though I say we're at that moment. We're at that moment of starting that conversation. We're not at that moment right now by any means. We might get kicked out of Freemasonry after this conversation. Hell, who knows? I mean, these are big topics right here.
Once you start talking about changing up stuff, that's too far.
We've thrown. You're right.
I didn't get a harump from that guy. Yeah.
There you go.
So brother Hastings in chat, he said, I prefer the extended back and forth vetting of the EA. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know what that is. So he says, one, we let in just about anybody without really knowing them. The EA process gets us to really know them. Some are discarded. Two, everything we do to make it faster and easier hurts. And then three, the Q&A is interpersonal and papers are much more individual. He also says some jurisdictions do allow papers instead. I just prefer our way, and I respect that. Like I'm not saying do away with the memory work. I'm just saying.
Well, I say do both. And yes, it is interpersonal, and that mentorship program is important. In fact, the Grand Secretary and I had a conversation on this week, because Grandview now has a section when you do go through and you're doing your when you're putting somebody through the degrees. It has all the steps of what's happening, and during the petition process, you now have a part to where you put down the mentor. When that it's voted on and it's decided that they're going to get the degrees, that's when you put in their instructor. And I told him, I said, well, you ought to put two in there, not just the one, because the mentor is different from the instructor. The instructor teaches the catechism. The mentor is a different character altogether within the lodge. And there should be both in a good lodge. And
Absolutely.
and he and I went back and forth. Now, of course,
I mean, we
Grandview
got a
has
whole
their
program
own.
for mentors.
I know, right? But they ultimately he won because Grandview is pre-cut that way, and because that's what other grand jurisdictions do. And so for us to add that in for us would be pretty expensive for us to just add that one part
They
in.
had a box.
So at least it's showing, hey, who was the instructor, this and that. So now we have somebody to blame. Not just kidding. But I agree with Zach. I mean, I think that if it's done right, there should be a certain amount of a relationship built in that process, and and uh, and that's important. That is the master apprentice relationship that is um, what these rites of passage require. You need that to be successful in what we do. I just don't think that that's all there is.
I agree. I agree. What else has come up on everybody's
But
mind?
he's right. We don't need to make it, quicker necessarily and cheaper. We need to make it, I think, more involved
No, yeah,
as
yeah,
far
yeah.
as
And I'm not
because
suggesting make it quicker by any means. Like I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite guy of that. Like I'm not saying speed it up.
oh yeah, the vetting systems should be a lot deeper than
Yeah,
once they become a Mason.
I mean that should be beefed up for sure.
Yeah.
But
But I think that the in sticking to my guns, of course, I think that the it is important for that individual reflection, that
hmm,
introspective, because when we don't take time to see what's going on inside that Mason, do we know if he's on the right track?
I agree.
If you got that guy, and this isn't to bash what Zach was saying. I love Zach. He knows that, and I know you know that.
I didn't know that
But
he knew that you knew that.
I know now, and knowing's half the battle.
Gee, I know.
Yes, I'm glad you got it. But anyways, um, yeah. So I think that is an important part, because how do we really know what this guy knows if we don't take a minute to listen to him?
Yeah, I agree. No, I was just I was thinking as you were talking. I can't find her. I'll throw it up. But there's a picture I've seen somewhere. I think it's on one of my coworkers' wall or something. But it has
Oh, I don't want to
like
hear about those pictures.
like a goldfish, and
Oh,
then there's
okay.
a chimpanzee, and then like a turtle, and a cat or a dog, something like that. And there's a tree behind them, and it's like if you judge animals, if you judge somebody's ability to, if you judge someone's value or intelligence based on their ability to climb a tree, you're really kind of missing the idea. And it's the same thing, like just because someone isn't interested or capable of memorizing three whole sections of catechism before they move, really, let's be honest, what is it? 7 whole things of catechism, not even that many, before they get to the masters, right? I think that's if we judge their ability to be a good Mason based off their ability to memorize a whole lot of catechism that they aren't necessarily internalizing and won't necessarily, I mean, that's not going to make them a good person,
Hey,
then
daughter,
we're kind of missing the mark here.
what's up?
Right.
So much. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm in the middle of it.
Well, mute him real quick. Yeah,
Did you mute him?
yeah, I muted him. I don't think he knew he was coming
He
in.
forgot. He blocked himself out, but he didn't take his. That's funny.
84,242 words. Yeah. So I just
Was that Zach that said that, or
no, it
was
was
that Cody?
Brad said it. Zach did
Oh,
say
Brad
it's
did?
yeah. Zach said he said it in the YouTube chat. But he said it's my lodge's 150th this year. I was looking at the minutes from Grand Lodge of the year we got our charter, and that year Texas rejected 792 and initiated 1,342. Now that is vetting. Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how it should be. Now I don't know how many lodges did like my granddad said they used to do, where you always got like blackballed the first time. But
Right.
yeah, I would be really interested, and I know you told us this before, Zach, like the percentage of how many people actually get blackballed this anymore. And I think we get so excited about the possibility of getting a new member that we kind of willingly look past any of our concerns or reservations, and that usually bites us in the butt. I don't think there's ever been a guy that's been voted on that I had reservations about that stuck around. Now, the people that I was like 100% like, yeah, this guy's going to be great, I'm really excited to start working with them and teach them and do stuff to do the degrees, they stuck around for the most part. So I think if you don't have that feeling, like if you're not 100%, I don't know.
Well, and it's happened a couple of times now. There's been guys that have come and asked for my signature on a petition, and I told them I wouldn't sign their petition because I didn't know them well enough,
Mm-hmm.
and that I don't think anybody should until they know them better. That they didn't come back. They were totally embarrassed, and I feel bad for the guy because it wasn't his fault. Somebody pushed a petition in his hand and said, "Hey, go get signatures." They shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, if you give up that easily, that's kind of like the blackball thing. If you give up that easily, then you really didn't want it that bad.
Zach said that the percentage dropped a bunch when we went from one black ball to 3 rejecting. And I could see that. When it was one
Yeah.
black ball, you had a lot of say as an individual on who joined your
Oh, yeah.
organization.
You had a lot of clicks that would stop people from being in as well.
Yeah. It was a two-sided thing. But here's the thing: if it was a click, if it was, I don't know. Like I know that the idea was that one guy shouldn't be able to keep someone from joining. But if it was like a click thing or something like that, you would still see like people getting together like, hey, we're not going to let this guy in. There's only 3 votes required.
Right.
So I don't know that was as much of a factor as it was we're losing members. We need to stop discouraging people from...
You may be right. Well, it definitely stopped the guy from the next county over from coming over and saying, I had bad dealings with this guy one time 20 years ago, and he shouldn't be a Mason.
But he could have still brought 2 guys with him. Like, that's not that big a deal. Like, if it was... You know what I mean? Like if you really,
I don't know. It's harder to get other people to join in just because they want to join in. It's in the old pitchfork and torch thing we're talking about here.
Which is why we should have just one pipe ball. I agree. It's not.
We're just rambling now. Zach, moving on.
I don't think we're rambling at all. Zach said, like with all the jump the shark moves we made due to membership over the past decades, it hasn't helped. Not at all. Yeah. So he supports what I said. So on you. Raspberries.
Well, since he said. Because I like him.
Okay. There's another comment. I didn't know anyone at my lodge, this isn't Zach, but showed up to all the events and dinners for a year and could have asked any brother there to sign when I was ready. Yeah, and that's... By the time you get a petition, you should know enough people at that lodge where it's not like this awkward.
Well, and that's the idea, right? And that's why we should be slowing this thing down at that point. That's where we should be slowing it down to where by the time they're a member, we already know that what's in their heart. We know what's in their heart. We have to be
intentional about that. Like, and so at one of my lodges, the worship master's done a great job of bringing the community in and petite people that are, and we've done this thing where like, hey, if you want to join, you need to come for a few months. But what
Because
happens
we're a
is,
civil service group.
but what happens is, and I agree with him on this, is you tell people you're going to
I just
wait
had to mess with you.
in the dining room. I mean, the dining room is full, and what happens is a lot of guys, a lot of Masons. I don't like crowded rooms. I'll find myself in like a side room or a back room where there's less people, and then the worship master will come through like, hey, we have the community in this room. We have people that are probably going to petition in a few months in this room. What's the point of having them come, and what's the point of having this lengthy process if we're not going out of our way to get to know these people? And so my point is, if you're going to have like a process where you say, hey, it's 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, a year, whatever that looks like, then you also have to be intentional. When that guy is at the lodge, he's not sitting there by himself, and he's talking to somebody, and people are getting to know him.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about a mentorship program.
It's just
Well,
crazy.
imagine that. One that the Grand Lodge might have had drawn up back in 1997. Actually, it was drawn up way before that, but it was rewritten in 1997, if I remember right. Or was it? No, no, the mentorship program wasn't until like 2008 or something. I need to go back and look. I was thinking about the parliamentary procedures. The mentorship program was later than that. It was like it was in the mid early 2000s. I don't even know how to say what decade. The first decade of the
The double
2000s.
aughts, back in the double aughts,
Right, back in the double aughts. But
back in,
anyways,
back in the late 20th century.
right. And it seemed like it was like 2008, maybe 2012, an even number, I think. It's been a while.
That's odd.
I'm probably wrong. But still,
Probably
I
not.
mean, there's a program that was written that said, hey, it should be intentional that when somebody walks through the door, you have a certain number of greeters, that's their job. They're going to walk up and they're going to greet these guys, and they're going to bring them in, tell them to go ahead and have dinner on us, sit down, let's visit, let's just talk. And then the rest of the lodge just follows suit after that.
I mean, we're not a business and we're not a church, but there's a lot of businesses you go in, there's someone to greet you as soon as you go in there. Like, you're greeted, and what you're looking for is found out. Same thing with a church. You go into any good church, as annoying as it is, you're greeted right away, and you have someone talking to you, trying to connect with you.
Well, in this situation, it's important because you want specific people that know the correct answers to give. Not the guy that's going to run up usually the wrong person to do it is the first guy that runs up to anybody that walks through the door and says, "Hey, come on in.
To
We're
be one,
glad
ask
to see.
one.
We're glad to
one,
see
ask
you.
one.
I got a petition right in the secretary's office for you. I'll go grab it for you. You just go have some dinner and we'll talk in a minute."
Yeah.
You know, that's the guy you don't want. As you know, you need the guys that are already prepped, that know, hey, these are our answers. We're asking them to spend X amount of months here having dinner with us and visiting with us, that if they want, we could get their email address, include them on social activities when we go out to eat somewhere or whatever. We could, see if they would like to go or what have you. Things like that. Some kind of a tracking system with a mentor system with a tracking system in the process.
Brad, were you going to say something a second ago? I saw your mic go on and then off.
Yeah, I was gonna say what I typed in the chat is: do you think that that every member should make it a point to greet a visitor?
I do,
I
and
mean,
I don't.
how many people are showing up to the meetings? 15. I mean, 15 people could go say hi to a visitor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
I think that's great, but me personally, I'm going to wait until the second time he shows up. And I think it can be overwhelming. It can almost be like this swarm of desperation.
Well, no, don't everybody come up to him at once and like wait in line or anything. But when the time is appropriate, I'm not saying you
Everybody
have to.
circle around, hold hands. He's here.
Yeah.
One of us. One
One
of
of
us.
us.
I'm just saying,
Yes.
if nothing else, when the time is right, go shake your hand. Go shake their hand and introduce yourself.
Right. Right.
That's all you
And
got to
that's a
do.
good idea. That's good.
And
That's good manners.
and then like the second or third time when the opportunity comes up, like dive a little deeper, right? But yeah, you don't want to have 15 people trying to have like a soul search moment with you to find out if you're the right fit. You can tell a lot just by how he talks with other people. Is he showing even showing up like he's supposed to be? And then when you get a chance to actually sit and talk with them. But the thing is,
Well,
you never know
go
if
ahead.
he gets a petition. You never know who's going to ask for a signature. So you should have at least had a conversation with him. You should, at the very least. And if you
Right.
don't feel comfortable enough after that, that's fine. But at least you made the effort and had a conversation with him.
Well, I think that they should have been visiting enough to have a couple of conversations with just about everybody.
Yeah.
Because we usually sit with 3 or 4 guys around, so there can be a conversation with everybody with 4 or 5 guys at each sitting. And you, like you said, you've only got 15 people that show up to lodge. So within 5 months, everybody's had a good conversation with them at least once, maybe twice, just depending on where everybody sat at different times.
Yeah.
But even I go in, when I walk in immediately, I go and shake everybody's hand in the dining room before I go to the office.
Never shake
Well,
my hand.
unless I'm really running behind.
Never shake my
But
hand, Dennis.
come on down to Oso. I'll
Only
show you how it's done.
most I ever got from you is one finger. Never a whole hand.
And by surprise. That's so bad. But but I go around every time I go to lodge. I'll walk in and I'll shake everybody's hand individually and say hello and glad to see you. And I think that if we all treated each other like that, we'd be much better off. We'd have more people show up if we treated each other like that. If every one of us did that with each one of the members when we came into the room,
Mm-hmm.
I think that we would.
I,
Because there's
you
a
know,
certain
actually, I like we
bond.
enjoy each other's company and want to see each other.
Yeah,
Isn't that
there's a
weird?
certain bond that comes with that contact and making that one-on-one. Boom. Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, that's another way that my cup gets filled is, when I do get to go to, especially, my favorite home lodges back in my district, being able to, especially because I'm not there all the time anymore, now that I've moved to Waco,
Yep.
when I go, and really it is, when I go home, it really is. It's a homecoming. It's absolutely, a cup filling, joyful time. All 3 of those lodges in my district are like that. It's just a freaking blast. And that fellowship is as important as any other in my life.
Yes.
And that's one of those happy making things that I get to find every now and again is going back home and we're doing a golden trowel next month and I can't wait. I'm so stoked to go and present this golden trowel. We've got second official visits coming up, July and August, and that's going to be another opportunity to get home, get some of that good, deep home feeling joy.
Yes.
And oh man, yeah, it's just perks me right
Well,
up.
and shouldn't that be the feeling when you're going to lodge? It shouldn't
Absolutely.
be that dreaded, another stated meeting. Shouldn't you walk into a place that you're really excited about going to? You can't wait to see your brothers and feel the love and know that there's a purpose besides just, going through the motions. So all you brothers out there in the chat, Zach, Caesar, all you guys. So the initial thing, the initial statement given was what fills your cup. And for me, it's writing papers and reflecting on the things that I've learned. And that really fills my cup. I feel like I'm building onto my soul when I'm building my intellect and my spirit. And so for you brothers out there in the world of YouTube, what fills your cup? I mean, even if you're not a brother, I mean, if you say, you're just a civilian and you say, hey, church fills my cup, or, you know, hanging out with the guys around a bonfire fills my cup. That's all very valid stuff to me. That's one of the reasons we go hunting, is so that we can all have that camaraderie together and get that cup filled. Not just the whiskey cup either, but to sit around the campfire and, kill some things together and have that hunter mentality of years past, and have that kind of camaraderie. That's cup filling for a lot of people. But I'm curious what our listeners out there are thinking right now as well. Now it's up to you, Justin, to field the 5,000 replies right this second.
You're muted.
I think they just have slow internet. We're waiting.
Right.
It's
They
filtering.
tuned out.
It's filtering. There
They
you go.
heard me start and they started tuning out. Their eyes just started going back into the back of their head.
Yeah, today I invited. Actually, I had originally invited my lodge members to my house on Friday, but I ended up working till 10 o'clock Friday night and told them I had to reschedule. But we rescheduled it today, and I'd bought a bunch of taco meat and cooked a bunch of tacos and just brought them all. Three, let's see, three brothers showed up and
Nice.
brought their families, and uh, we ate tacos and had a good time.
That's nice.
We talked a little bit about masonry. We talked about family. Um, you know,
That's the only part about fish fries that I enjoy with brothers. I would rather we did just fish fries and had a fish fry and had fellowship and eat together, as opposed to doing it to sell to other people.
Yeah.
I would rather just, hang out and BS with each other, give each other a hard time, kind of like what we're doing here, except, in that setting.
There's a comment. I like learning, talking about filling the cup. I like learning the many ways to process this world we live in. One of the main things that drew me to Masonry was that concept of discussing with others the philosophical side of the mundane world. I'm introverted, yet I have been getting more comfortable with the fraternal side of things. Now I shake hands and greet even when not in lodge. Yeah.
Nice. And that's the good stuff right there. And that is what we're supposed to be helping with. And I think that's our new Mason right there. In the future, we've got so many people that are connected online and not so much in the world. Then that's why they come to Freemasonry, is to get that interpersonal connection, to become better at being human and not tech, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm sorry if I'm speaking wrong. Maybe that's not how you feel, but I think that we're seeing a trend of people coming off the streets that come from the tech world, or they come from a world full of tech, and they're trying to unplug and have real relationships.
Yeah, I can see that too. That's something I discussed in the past, where you might have a lot of friends on Facebook, but they're more like acquaintances or coworkers, not necessarily your actual friends. So if you measure your popularity by how many Facebook friends or followers on TikTok or Instagram you have, that won't really match with the reality, and you still have like this void. Like if you don't have anyone
Let
to talk
yourself
to,
down.
yeah, you don't have anyone to talk to or any like actual close friends that you can just go have fun with. Like everything's superficial. Um, that's kind of the way things are now with a lot of people. There's nothing really deep. There's no real conversations or anything. It's just it's like living people. I've noticed with kids like movies that are really good. Like, and I'm not being subjective here. I mean, good movies like stuff that '90s, early 2000s, things like that. These are good movies, and but kids don't have the attention span for that anymore, right? Because they're living their lives. Their lives are like TikTok, where everything's just fast paced, and their the things that they experience are quick. Their friendships are quick. Their relationships are quick. But eventually, your human nature takes in is like this is exhausting and it's not fulfilling me in any way, right? You might be getting dopamine from like the rush of all these quick experiences, but ultimately you look around and it's like I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't have any friends or anything. Like so, you need something deeper, and
Yeah.
that's what we offer.
One of the one of my cues for if it's a superficial friendship is when every conversation, every sentence ends with an LOL. It's like, dude, not everything is funny.
I'll remember
Not
that. I'll remember that now.
yeah, you do that next time you text me and it's over. But I can tell when I've moved from a certain friendship to a little bit of a deeper friendship with somebody when those LOLs start to fade and you start to actually have real conversations. And that's nice. But they're very few and far between if it's all on Facebook.
Same user said I was definitely coming from the tech side of things. Reached out through Facebook, dreaded meeting at the lodge for the initial meeting. It basically reintroduced him to the world. He would be astonished listening to his brothers speaking on how they strike up conversations and meet people from stores and things like that. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I mean,
Man,
it's just
glad you're here.
yeah.
Damn glad you're here. I'm glad you're on this show tonight. I'm glad that you're here because that makes me feel good about, it kind of validates some of the thoughts that I've had for some time and and
You need to zoom your camera out. Your head's getting too big. It's filling it up.
dude, it's already as far away as it's across the room already. What are you talking about?
Okay. You might need a satellite to.
But but that's part of what I'm writing on for my presentation in for next Saturday down in Houston over at Serenity Lodge in down in South Texas. That's that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Telling these guys, look, we're dealing with a different group of young men that are coming in, and even if they're not young, our generation, we grew up. Well, I didn't grow up that, but even Gen X from 20 years old on, I had tech in my life. And maybe it was rudimentary, but it was tech. I mean, hell, I had Atari when I was a kid. It may have started with the old Pong, when I was a little kid. We started with Pong and then moved up in the world. But so I had tech in my life, the whole things that could distract me from the world. And now it's even more intense because all of the information that's coming to these young men of today is, well, I say all of it, but just a ton of information is coming from the internet. It's not coming from the classroom as much as it is from the internet. You can have 30 kids in the same classroom and they all be on their phones Facebooking each other or Instagramming whatever they're doing, tweeting whatever they're doing in real time to each other without ever talking. That's the reality we live in today. Families are doing that. We need to be different. We need to know what we're dealing with and have something and know what we have to offer.
I agree. There's a question. I have a question. Would it be possible For an individual to memorize first, second, and third degree work. Yeah. That's it's all done through memory. Like all the degrees are done from memory. Could an individual, like one person, memorize all three? Yeah. I mean, they get
There's lots
certificates.
of A certificate holders.
Yeah,
They call them a certificate guys.
yeah. Your district instructor, if you join, would have to know it all. So, or at least be pretty familiar with it.
Well, he doesn't have to know it all, but he has to be good enough about it. Take care,
Yeah,
Brad.
yeah.
It's good seeing you.
Good night, Brad.
But
We're
he
probably
has to
about to
be
do final
familiar
thoughts,
with
Brad,
it.
so you're not gonna miss much. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, like if you asked me to confer a master's degree right now, I couldn't do it. But give me a week, right? Like I'm familiar
Right.
enough with it. I just need to brush up on it.
Is that a potential member or a actual member?
Uh, I think it's a potential member. It's
Okay.
there's an individual that's been coming onto the chat for quite a while, but he changes his username a lot. But based off the way it's worded, I think it's him. So he's not a member yet, but I think he's potentially
Okay.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible to memorize all the work. In fact, by time you go become a master mason, you pretty much have it all in your head at that time. And it's only through laziness that it goes away. That's
Or just never
when
learning it.
I had to learn it to become an EA, and then the fellowcraft and the masters happened so soon after that EA stuff was still in my head. So it was all there at one time at one point in my life.
Yeah.
I just got lazy and had too many scotches, and here I am today.
Well, that's one
Uh,
advantage of the full catechism for the EA is at least you pretty much know the lecture by the time you're done.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I should have went for the certificate then instead of waiting until a lot faded, and I probably would still be a certificate holder because I do believe in the ritual.
Yeah.
I do.
I agree. Well, it's almost 10:30. Let's do our final thoughts and wrap this up. It's been a good conversation. Byron, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So we have we've been kind of all over the place tonight, but to go back to the original topic of what fills the cup, I think the more I've thought about it over the course of the evening, what it really boils down to for me is fellowship, whether it's with family, with friends, with brother Masons. The fellowship is really paramount, and it has, as you mentioned earlier, it is one of the things that we certainly could stand to improve on some. Because of the prevalence of tech in our lives today, we have a tendency to interact more through that tech. And the thing that I believe sets Masonry apart from many other organizations is the fact that it really is a person-to-person based organization where we're not here looking for network opportunities or things like that. We really are supposed to be here looking for ways to improve ourselves, to become better than we were yesterday. And yeah, so that's what I've got.
Well, I think if those not to negate what you're saying, and I think that's awesome. But I think if those network opportunities come, it's because you've got those relationships. It's not why you did it, but it is there because you have those relationships and people know you and they trust you. And so
it's a happy coincidence.
Yes.
That you do get networking opportunities when you join any organization.
Right. Yes.
So it's not just Masonry, but it's not why we join. It's just, as I said, it's a happy coincidence that occurs when you get in there and take part.
Yes. I agree.
I will say before I give my final thought, there's a gentleman in chat, Jason Reichenberg.
Rickenbacker?
Rickenbacher,
Rickenbacker, yeah.
He says, giving Dennis a hard time is how he enjoys his Freemasonry. That's what fills his cup.
I'll be happy to fill your cup anytime.
Oh my.
That's funny. That's funny.
I don't know how that was meant to sound.
Well, I don't think he's not on the show tonight because of me. So I'll just say that.
Probably something I did. Yeah. Nice.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know. But
he just wants to be able to be on there and then jump off whenever he wants to because he gets tired. He's old. He's old like that.
Well, you better watch that old nonsense.
Well, shit, you wouldn't be here if you weren't waiting up for your brother. Is that who you're with?
I was, but he just one of the times I shut off my video and audio was when he called and said that there is flooding in Dallas and Fort Worth.
Oh,
so
man.
They're stopping in Ardmore, Oklahoma.
Oh yeah, there's some storms going through up there. I got a few notifications on my phone, but it hadn't hit us yet.
Man, I miss those.
I wouldn't.
Dude, we live in drought. I miss those hard thunderstorms. Just rock your world. They're awesome. I miss them.
Well, I'll say just as final thoughts. This has been good. Like we started with what fills our cups, and then we proceeded to fill our cups with just our conversation. So I don't think we ever really drifted off. I think we just stayed on topic and filled our cups. And this is another way that I like what Brad said, where he kind of starts his week. He looks at this like the start of his week, and this fills his cup for sonically for most of the week. And I do get a lot of fulfillment out of these conversations. So I would definitely agree with that sentiment. And I feel like we accomplished our goal. We stayed on task. We proceeded to fill our own cups, and we had some pretty good conversations in the meantime. So I would encourage anybody in chat, if you want to be part of these conversations, you need to consider joining the Inner Circle. You do that by becoming a member on YouTube. By member, I don't mean like a lodge member. You're just a member of the channel, and you support us, help us pay the bills, and
just the one up from subscriber. So,
and so as a return, you get access to ad-free content. Like tomorrow's video is going to drop at 11, but it's already accessible ad-free to the members only guys, to the Inner Circle guys, and get you access to the Zoom. So I would encourage anybody watching this, like if you want to be part of this, if maybe your Freemasonry is just not cutting it, or if you're interested in the conversations, even if you're not a Mason, consider joining the Inner Circle. So with that said, that's all I got. Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't give secrets away with what we do. So another thing that we have with our membership is we're doing a book club with our membership. We're studying the Kabbalion right now, which is Hermetic principles, and we just did chapters 3 and 4, and now we're going to do 4 and 5. And it doesn't just stay with Hermeticism either. It also veers into all kinds of things, just like our conversations do. I mean, we start with these topics and then they go where they go. And because we like the natural flow of things, and how the ebb and flow of life is, we allow that to happen. We don't like to be so rigid that people can't be themselves and they can't be in the moment. If sometimes we get so caught up in all the rigidity, and I think this falls back into our discussions with the lodges and the stated meetings. We can get so caught up in the rigidity and all the different things we're trying to achieve as this civic organization, that we lose track of ourselves and who we are, and we stop living in the moment. I'm at that age in life, and I've always been this way all my life pretty much, but now I'm really at that age in life to where, man, I don't have time for the bullshit. I want real people that surround me. I want people in my life that are real, that have my best interests at heart, and will tell me if I'm wrong, and it's okay, because I know they're doing it with my best interest in heart, not trying to hurt me in not trying to get a leg up like at work or something like that, which that doesn't happen at work for me. But, you know, I just don't have time to beat around the bush. I don't have time for that dance anymore. I'm at an age that I really want what's real and tangible, and I want my relationships to be real and tangible. I want the brotherhood to be real and tangible. And so I'm going to make every effort to do that. And that's why when I'm sitting back thinking about, you know, where I've been, what my goals are in the future for myself and my family, my fraternity, you know, that time of reflection is extremely important to me. You know, even in the Bible, it says, you know, God created the world in 6 days, and then on the seventh day, he rested. He rested. Why? Because he needed to reflect on what he had done, just sit and enjoy what he had done, and then decide what's going to be next, right? In that storyline, that's what I see in my mind. Whether you believe in, you know, the Christian Bible, the, you know, the Torah, whatever, or you know, the the Quran, whatever you believe, there's in every one of these religions, in every faith that I've studied, there's reflection. There's time you take to reflect on where you are in the moment, where you've been, where you are in the moment, and where you plan on going, and what it's going to take to get there. And I think that at my age today, I don't have time to circle around the toilet bowl. You know, I just gotta, I just gotta get to the shit, right? I gotta get to the real shit, and for lack of better terms. You guys are definitely that for me. You're the shit in my toilet bowl for real.
Oh,
You got
oh, I feel so warm and smelly.
That is actually the nicest thing Dennis ever said to me. So
a little warm, little dirty. No, but seriously, in all reality, you know, this journey has been a great one for me, and I have been on a very superficial path, and my path has turned inward and more deep, and I'm really grateful. Just stop. Give me a chance to speak without making me laugh. I'm going to stop looking at you. I've really gotten to a point, not just with older age, but after further examination of the ritual, of the symbolism, reading different authors, discussing uh, these kind of topics with you brothers here on the show, with brothers outside of the show, sitting and having a scotch with some like-minded brothers is my favorite thing to do. My very favorite thing to do, besides spending time with my family. And you know, they benefit from it as well. They get a better dad. We were talking, in fact, that's what spurred this on for all of you people, if any of you were actually interested. The reason this topic came up is because I was talking with my wife today about how I've worked all week. I had to get a back procedure done in the middle of the week to burn some nerves. And then the next day I was out cutting down a big old oak tree that was 100 years old with my chainsaw. You know, that's the life I live. And then back at it with work. You know, and then on top of that, lodge, masonry, everything, you know, there's always something tugging at me. And this week I did not have my time of reflection. And I usually take that when I'm writing a paper. And I didn't take that time this week, and I felt like crap today. And we were talking about it, and she agreed that whatever I need, just take my time. because I deserve it too. So for all you brothers out there who are burning the wick at both ends, I get it. You you just want to be the best version of yourself and help your fraternity the best that you can. But take a minute every once in a while. Reflect on where you are and where you're going, what your goals are, what your vision for your life is, how you feel spiritually, intellectually, and build on your soul. Fill your cup. Take a minute. So with that being said, I love you brothers, all you brothers that are online with in the chat. You know, I know every one of you, and I'm grateful that you're on the show. And I look forward to the next time I see you. And love you brothers here with me as well. And otherwise, all my friends and family out there,